It's time for The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword review for the Wii. I have been wanting to play this game ever since, well, probably when the rumors about a sequel to Twilight Princess first started appearing on the internet. Then, when I saw the trailer at E3, I was actually surprised at myself for not being as excited as I thought I would be, and you'll see why in a bit. This game, as of this date, has no prequel. According to the official Zelda timeline, this is the beginning of the Zelda universe, so to speak, and only by playing it and other Zelda titles can you fully understand the importance of this game. Unlike any other Zelda game, Skyward Sword first starts out in the sky. Link, Zelda, and a bunch of other people live on a giant floating rock called Skyloft, with other small landmasses surrounding them at a distance that ranges from close to far away. This is not a typical Zelda game in a handful of ways, and one of the most noticeable differences is that Link starts out with not 3, but 6 hearts in the beginning of the game. I wasn't sure how I felt about this at first, but I learned to like it for a reason I will state later in the review. Another noticeable difference is that Zelda is not a princess, but one of Skyloft's villagers and childhood friend of Link. So as to not spoil anything, I won't say anything else crucial to the story. When you think of Zelda, you might think of Link riding on his horse, or in some cases, a boat or train. However, in this game, Link rides on his giant bird companion and flies through the sky. To control the bird, you will point the Wiimote horizontally and tilt it in whichever direction you want to maneuver in. You can also jerk the Wiimote up to gain altitude, and these controls all work very well. Now, I did say that the game isn't a typical Zelda game in some ways, but for the overall majority of gameplay, it is. You'll fight your way through dungeons, solve puzzles, and defeat giant bosses. To complete all this, you will have to, as you probably know, use your sword. This game requires the Wii Motion Plus accessory, or the Wii Remote Plus. Nintendo takes full advantage of their gadget in this game. Your swings are one-to-one with Link, meaning whichever way you swing, twist, or jab your Wiimote, Link will pull off the same exact move with his sword on screen. The controls are similar to Twilight Princess, that is, with swinging your sword around, but it's way more precise. With Twilight Princess, you could just swing the Wiimote almost any way you wanted, and Link would slice and dice the enemies, but with Skyward Sword, you will get nowhere if you try to just flail the Wiimote. This is because Nintendo made it so that almost every enemy you fight will try to block your attacks, and they do most of the time. You have to wait for a clear opening, or try and knock back the enemies with a parry from your shield to get a shot in. To parry an attack, you'll have to jerk the nunchuck forward and hold it up in front of you like you would with a real shield. This control scheme works almost too well, and I say this because I think the nunchuck is a little oversensitive, as I would take out my shield on accident one too many times for it to not become a small annoyance. A cool feature that I've only seen in a couple of other Zelda titles is that Link can shoot huge discs of energy from his sword. The way to do this is, hold up the Wiimote so that it's pointed relatively straight up, and hold it there for about 2 to 3 seconds. On screen, Link will point his sword skyward and charge it up. Once it's charged, Link will send out a disc of energy towards his target the next time you swing his sword. The charge is only good for one disc at a time, so you can't be super cheap with your attacks, but it's another feature Skyward Sword has that just makes me like the game even more. With past Zelda games, I felt that the overall challenge factor of the game was just a little too under par. However, with Skyward Sword, that definitely isn't the case. This game can get quite challenging, especially in a certain later part of the game, which, I have to say, almost became frustratingly difficult. The part I'm speaking about isn't difficult due to bad controls, bad level design, or anything like that. It's just difficult because it is. The overall challenge of the game is higher than previous Zelda games, which I appreciate, and I think Nintendo knew the challenge factor would be higher in this game, and therefore surprising to fans of the series, which is why they start Link out with 6 hearts instead of the traditional 3. The challenge mostly comes from having to be precise with your sword swings against enemies and when trying to solve certain puzzles. I have to say, I was a bit skeptical with how well the controls would work when first watching the demos, but after completing the game, I'm not so sure I would want to go back to the traditional button pressing. Another new feature Nintendo added to the game is that Link has a stamina gauge. This makes the game more realistic and also adds to the challenge factor of the game. Link can sprint in this game, which, I have to say, makes it a lot easier and or faster to get around, but you can only sprint as long as you have some energy in your stamina gauge. Throughout each area of the game, you will find small green fruits which, when walked or run over, will fill up the gauge completely. These are really nice to find, as the gauge will start to deplete immediately when Link starts to dash, and you can only dash for about 5 seconds before it runs out. If it does run out, Link will huff and puff, and the only thing you can make him do is walk very slowly until the gauge is fully replenished. The gauge will also start to deplete when you climb on walls, carry heavy items, and when you pull off awesome sword techniques. Just like every other Zelda game, you will acquire special yet familiar items when you play through. Not all are from past Zelda games, like this item called the Beetle. As with every item, you will use either the pointer controls or the motion controls of the Wiimote, or sometimes even both. With the Beetle, as soon as you launch it away from Link, you will be able to control its flight path via the motion sensors in the Wiimote, almost congruent to that of the controls when you fly Link's giant bird. I didn't have a problem with any of the control schemes with any of the items. Now, I've heard that the bomb controls would sometimes give people problems, but I thought they worked just fine. You can set a bomb down next to you, or throw it with a flick of the Wiimote, and now you can even roll a bomb towards your target, a new feature which I really like doing. Link's quite the bowler. There are many side quests in this game, which I of course love. It will take you hours to complete the side quests, which of course just adds to the overall enjoyment of the game. The graphics are, well, unique. Some say it's a cross between the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, and I can agree with that. However, I think my brother said it best when he said that he thinks it's a style all its own. It is beautiful. When you look at something from a distance, it's almost like watercolor and comes into focus more and more as you get closer to it. I have to admit, when I first saw the trailer, I was kind of 50-50 on whether I liked it or not. You have to understand, coming from Twilight Princess, I was expecting realistic graphics like that, and then to see this unique style, it was a bit shocking, and I wasn't really sure what to think of it. However, soon after I started playing, I really started to enjoy the beauty of it, and now I really like it. The controls are basically perfect on one side of the page, and, well, I guess there's only one side to it. What I'm trying to say is, you will have to recalibrate the controls once in a while because they can go haywire. I did like it, however, that there was like a sub-calibration feature, and that was whenever you were in first-person mode with either your sword, a different item, or even just looking around, you could press the down button on the D-pad and the pointer would go back to the middle of the screen, which usually corrected the controls, making it so that you didn't have to go into the menu and pause the game to recalibrate the controls. I'm not saying you won't ever have to go to the menu calibration screen, because you most likely will have to, but this was an excellent feature that I really appreciated. The music is just beautiful. Skyward Sword has a fully orchestrated soundtrack which just adds the uniqueness that I love. Skyward Sword also comes with a second disc besides the game itself, with a fully orchestrated Zelda compilation soundtrack which is very fun and at times nostalgic to listen to. One thing my siblings and I really liked was that Skyward Sword has quite a lot of Easter eggs that referenced other Zelda games. It was great! We saw and or read references to the Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, even the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. It's just little things like that in a game which just makes you smile. Now, I know I've been basically praising the game left and right, but there were some downsides I found, and that is one, I felt that the game was too linear. I really didn't get a lot of that exploration sense when playing other Zelda games like Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, or the Wind Waker. Especially the Wind Waker. The game isn't completely linear, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it offered enough exploration to it. Another downside was that you have all the sky to explore, yet a lot of the floating islands, so to speak, are just rocks with a few enemies on them that you'll probably ignore most of the time, or they're a warp rock, where if you fly through it, you'll get a temporary high boost of speed. Granted, there are some islands with things to do on them, but I felt that there was a lot of unused potential that could have been in the form of side quest islands. The boss fights were not a downside though. It seems like the majority of boss fights in Zelda games are just too easy to me, and I was pleasantly surprised to find the difficulty had been raised in this game. Now, not all of them were that difficult, but most of them were a step up or two from the Wind Waker's and Twilight Princess's boss fights when talking about difficulty. The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is a fantastic game. Great, beautiful graphics, nearly perfect controls, lots of little knickknacks here and there to give the game a lot of charm, the story is quite good, lots of fun side quests, a beautiful score, and the boss fights were fun and challenging. I did find some downsides, which were 1, it felt like the game was too linear. I felt like there wasn't enough exploration to it, which I have found in past Zelda series. 2, I was kind of disappointed with the lack of things to do on other islands. Yes, there are a handful of islands where you get to do some fun things, but you have all this space and it just seems lacking, which is kind of disappointing. And last but not least, I was pretty disappointed that they didn't allow Link to swing his sword and walk or run around at the same time like he was able to in Twilight Princess. That was actually one of my favorite features in Twilight Princess, and Nintendo either forgot or deliberately did not put that in, which was pretty disappointing. Overall though, it is still an amazing game that every Zelda fan should definitely play. If you're skeptical about the game for any reason, you need not worry, you are in for a real treat. This game gets a 4.75 out of 5 with the title of Epic.